Hi everyone, welcome to Membership Voice. I'm Kero O'Shea, the coordinator of The Voice and the host for this evening's webinar. Very special welcome to tonight's presenters, President Stephany Martin and Assistant Rotary Coordinator Damian Leach from Rotary Campbelltown in South Australia. Hi Stephany and Damian, how are you?
I'm well, Kero.
Great, thanks.
Fantastic. It's important at this stage to take a moment to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm hosting tonight's webinar. I acknowledge the strength of their continuing culture and offer my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I'm looking forward to working with the community during National Reconciliation Week, which is coming up. And now for tonight's presentation, the powerhouse club that is Campbelltown, that continues to defy the odds and to grow, to be presented by President Stephany and ARC Damian. Over to you, please, Stephany and Damian.
Thanks, Kero. It's great to be here, and we're joining you from Ghanaland. So the Rotary Club of Campbelltown. So you might see the photo here. That's actually of our council chambers looking up towards the hills in Adelaide. So we're in South Australia. And I guess some context. So Campbelltown Club encompasses the local government council of Campbelltown, and that has a mixture socioeconomically and a diversity of cultures, which is great because it just brings so much to our club and to our community. So this presentation, I guess, has three key elements to it. The first one is about the importance of strategy. The second is around engagement with alumni and younger members. And the third is the importance of bringing people with you and making sure that our membership is actually part of that conversation. So I'll just start off with a quote, which is, "I'm here to build something long-term. Anything else is a distraction." And so often when we look at our clubs, we look at what's next instead of what's in 10 years, what's in 20 years. Now, as we'll talk about in a moment, Stephany and I have been in the club for about 10 years. We celebrated our 50th when I was president in 2015-16, and we're actually looking at how can we actually have our club exist in 50 years, 60 years, so that we actually get to that 100-year point. That's what we're about to celebrate with one of our clubs in South Australia, in the Rotary Club of Adelaide, in I think it's a year's time. We want to get that to that point too. So that was, I guess, when we consider strategy, it's around the longevity and sustainability of our club. So why are we talking to you? So just a few things about us. So briefly, I was an exchange student. I moved to Perth in 2001, came back to Adelaide. I joined Rotary Club of Campbelltown in 2009. I was on the board pretty continuously. I had, I think it was a couple of years off. I was a bit tired, but I continued on with my district work. So I've been on district leadership for about, I think it's 10 years, 9 years, 10 years. And I'm currently on the board as one of the district governor's nominations, and I'm starting as deputy governor next year. I've also been the assistant coordinator for the last couple of years as well, for youth programs, younger membership and alumni. And Stephany, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, let me read my bio here. I grew up in rural New South Wales, so we're about an hour out of any town. So when I say I'm from the country, definitely from the country. I first travelled to Adelaide to attend the Rotary Youth Program of Enrichment in 2011. And that's where I was told about the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards in 2011, also because I was 17 turning 18. So I was actually eligible to attend both in the same year. After that, because of all the amazing people I met in Adelaide, I moved to Adelaide to study law and consequently joined the Rotary Club of Campbelltown in 2012. Sorry, I forgot to mention, in the meantime, after I finished with RYLA, that did inspire me to join Rotary. My local Rotary club in the country was the Rotary Club of Wentworth, which is why I transferred and found a Rotary club in Adelaide. Since 2012. I have been a board member of my club in 2014 and 2016, and also from 2020. I've been a district Rotaract chair for the years there, district Interact chair, district RILA chair for 4 years. And during that time, I also won the Campbelltown Young Citizen of the Year, which put me in the running to be South Australian Young Citizen of the Year, which I won in 2018. And I was also a finalist for South Australian Young Australian of the Year. Currently, I'm president of the Rotary Club of Campbelltown, and I'm going into my 3-year term of area governor starting in July, which I'm looking forward to. So I'll hand back over to Damian.
Thanks, Steph. So we thought we'd start off with a bit of Campbelltown's history. So Campbelltown is 56 years old this year. We're one of those, I guess you could say we're one of those typical 1960s clubs. Male only, a bunch of business people getting together, having a chat, cigar smoking, national, the club that I'm talking about. That was our club. And I've just got some video there so that you can actually get a feel of what it was like. It seems a bit foreign to us now, that whole thing, but I'll talk to you a little bit about it in a moment. But our club only removed singing from our standing club meeting in 2015. So there were these songs that we would sing that I didn't know the words to, that seemed like they were World War I troop songs. It was a great experience to learn them, but in an out-of-tune club, it didn't sound great. Campbelltown was an innovative club back in 1966 when it was chartered. It was seen as the black sheep of the district. It was, Campbelltown had mechanics, panel beaters, people that grew vegetables and sold them at the market were all members of the Campbelltown Club. Over time, that changed. So it was chartered in 1966. The main fundraiser was a jumble sale that it held annually. And that actually evolved to be our secondhand shed sale, which we still do. It also held an annual Mardi Gras, which profiled local community groups. It's not the other type of Mardi Gras that we might be familiar with now. Back in 1966, I suspect that wasn't as accepted. Fellowship activities such as farm days for families, car rallies, progressive dinners were common. And in fact, I've heard many, many stories of the progressive dinners and people having to roll home or potentially not being in a position to drive. Hands-on projects were key because the vast majority of members were between 30 and 55 years of age. They erected buildings, they put up shade sails, they conducted community gardening. They did all of these things. And can I just say, these are all things that I would love to be doing now. Then the club became a bit complacent. It was quite comfortable. It had about 60 members and they were quite comfortable with 60 members. So between 1990 and 2010, there was no growth. In fact, it lost members and they didn't induct many members. They only inducted, I think it was about 20 members in that whole 20 years. So there was a level of complacency that crept in. And it was only in 2010 that it was really, there's something happening here and we need to fix it. And it came about, interestingly, because of the shed sale that we were talking about, which is our main fundraiser. So in 2010-11, our club had an average age of 71. There were 2 members under 50, of which I was one of them. There were 6 members who were female, none under 55 years of age. There were 73 club members, so 6 females out of 73. The first night that I came to Campbelltown, I actually thought it was a male-only club because I couldn't actually see any women in the room at all. There were concerns, and this is where it came. There were concerns around the longevity of the second-hand shed. Now, the vast majority of our members contribute their service through our second-hand shed sale. It contributes in kind to domestic violence shelters, to local migrant groups. It's a low cost, And so people who are setting up come in there and they can set up a whole house for under $150, including bedding. So it's a great community service. And there were significant concerns because we weren't able to do pickups anymore because of the age of our members. We were starting to struggle with that. Only one past president was female. And she just happened to be the wife of a past district governor. And so there was a significant issue, both with the number of women in the club, but also going into leadership positions within the club. One person from the club was on the district committee. So there was a level of that complacency has stretched to the district. We didn't need to be involved in district. We didn't need the district. We were okay on our own. And like I said, we were a singing club. Every meeting before we'd eat, there would be a song. I'm glad some of you are laughing. Classification and attendance at club meetings were key in assessing a potential member. So when we would interview a potential member, they were the two key things that we spoke about. What was their classification? And could they attend 100% or close to every club meeting?
Yes, my classification, when I first joined, I was a university student. So I didn't have a profession. I didn't even have a full-time job because I was a full-time student. So the club spent around 3 months discussing how I could be a member because I don't have a classification. And if you were to look at how much I've contributed over the past 10 years, that would be very disappointing if I wasn't able to be a member of Rotary because I didn't have a profession.
What was your first classification?
Visual arts, because I liked to paint in my spare time and I sold a couple of them. So that was the workaround for our club.
And we were I was speaking to Kira about this earlier. The reason, and I don't know if Steph is aware of this, but the reason it took 3 months was we actually had objections to her joining. So that's back in 2010. So I just wanted to provide that so you have a feel of the club. Every journey begins with the first step. So I'm going to bring you to 2015. We're going ahead about 5 years. So we had a discussion about developing a strategic plan. However, there wasn't any enthusiasm. And in fact, the reason there wasn't any enthusiasm was there were a number of members in the club that felt, we don't need a strategic plan. We don't need the arguments that'll come with it. We all have different things that we want to do, and that should be okay. It was too hard. There were cliques forming. There were cliques before, but they were becoming probably a little bit more structured. Enthusiasm peaked in 2016. So in 2016, we actually celebrated our 50th year of charter, and everyone was pretty excited about that. We doubled the number of members under 40 in the club since 2010, so we were up to 4. We had 81 members at the end of the year. We chartered a Rotary club, and we had 8 people within the club that were on district committees. So we were building that engagement. And this next one's probably a key one in enabling the other things to happen in terms of culture change. We implemented a bullying and harassment policy. So what had developed over many years was a bit of a blokey culture. And that was potentially the reason why there weren't many female members, is because they weren't necessarily showing the respect that they were duly deserved. And that was a step in being able to change that. And basically the policy, to simplify it, was if something like this happens, that's unacceptable and disrespectful, you should be expecting to not be in the club anymore. And yes, you'll have appeal rights because we have that as members in the bylaws, but you should be expecting to not be attending meetings anymore. And there haven't been, I think there's been one incident since, whereas in the previous 5 years, you could probably count on maybe 2 hands. So we'll talk about 2016 to 2019. So in 2017-18, there were substantial concerns raised about the divisions within the club. These are various, so venue, meal cost, projects of the club, and the longevity, the sustainability of the club. So given this, the membership committee recommended that we undertake a full club survey. So this was to work out whether it was just bubbles or whether there was substance around this and whether there was something that we actually needed to resolve. So what we did was we based this around the strategic planning survey that RI puts out. And also we put some additional questions in. So we had some quantitative questions. We also had some qualitative questions. We compared that to the member experience survey. So many of you will have filled out one of those RI surveys about what your experience has been like as a member. And that's all consolidated, and then that's put out in a report that you can request. And we actually used that as, I guess, our standard. So where were our deviations against that? Were we doing better? Were we doing worse? And actually, we used that as a guide of what we needed to resolve in the long term. While this was happening, we made a conscious decision not to induct members. And in fact, we preceded it a little bit. So we decided, this went on for about 8 months. So we didn't induct anyone for about maybe 9 months. And we just thought, we can't bring someone into our club at this stage while all this is happening and think that they're going to have a positive experience. And we'd much rather not have them in the club and have them come in later than have them have a bad experience and never join Rotary at all. So surveying our membership. So I'm just going to briefly show you, I guess, the questions we asked, and then I'll go through the key areas that we sought to resolve. So I'll just go through this quickly. I can make this available as a PDF as well, if that's helpful. So the key questions for me were around, were you proud of the club? So there's a question in here around, are you proud of our Rotary Club? And that was if they said no, then basically we should be looking at this as game over. If you're not proud of your club, you're not going to ask people to join, you're not going to contribute. So these are all the quantitative questions. So we looked at these, so on a scale of 1 to 5, if it was a really low number, then we saw that as a good thing. The higher numbers we were concerned about. We also used this as a guide for Rotary information. So Rotary information had sort of slackened off over the last couple of years. People weren't really taking it seriously. And if we were inducting new members, that's the way that they learn about what Rotary is about in many ways. And so we actually asked the question, what would you like to know more about? And used that as a guide for the Rotary information program.
I think it's also important to note that we did stress that this survey was anonymous and encouraged people to be completely honest and protected their identity so that we could get an accurate reading from the club. So, and in fact, of our 73 members, we had 69 responses. So, and yes, some of that meant text messaging multiple times and sending links and so forth, but it was really important that everyone felt included. And in fact, the 4 that didn't do it, one of them was actually had just been admitted to a nursing home, so didn't have access to the internet at that point, and 2 others were actually overseas and hadn't had an opportunity to respond. So I was feeling very confident with the level of responsiveness that we had. Then we get to the qualitative component. So why did you originally join our club?
so that we could actually get a gauge of what were they looking for. And then we talked about how has this provided this to you? What are the advantages of belonging to Rotary, and what does Rotary mean to you? So when we went to talk about the outcomes, we knew why they joined and we knew what was important for them. So we could frame it around that. So we actually put out a double-sided laminated word map that had the keywords from everyone on it, so that I said, we're not going to get rid of these things. These are the things you want. We're trying to get back to that. So the outcomes. Does a good job involving new members, was a bit high. Reflects the demographic profile, was probably a little bit high as well. Seeks to involve all based on interest, skills, and availability, a little bit high also. So the numbers actually gave us a good reading of what we needed to resolve. Meals and refreshments, really high, which is what we expected, because this all started from people not being happy with meals and cost. Professional connections and networking was high. Variety of program topics was high. Location was a bit high. At that point, we were meeting in a different venue to where we are now. Rotary information was a bit high. So we could tell that people were being honest, because these were the things that we'd sort of picked up anyway. Service projects, too few projects overall. In a club of our size, people felt that we should be doing more, particularly public image, community service, and vocational service. It was acknowledged that service projects were broadly well organised. Communication, work to update processes. So they felt our processes were a bit archaic. Comfort with pace of change was a bit high as well. Advisors of opportunities at district level was a bit high. So that means that we weren't doing that effectively. Acts upon member ideas was also a bit high. And so we needed to look at how we were responding to suggestions that were coming through. Service committees feel listened to 92%, which was quite positive. So what that was happening was there was obviously they were feeling listened to, but they weren't feeling acted upon. Informed of other committees, 53%, which was quite low. And so we took some steps to be able to resolve that. Responsible for a project, 74%. So that was quite positive. Rotary information, the things they wanted to know more about: club projects, district projects, annual dues and how they were spent, the structure of Rotary, and a bit more of the club history. So value of membership. People feel welcome. Most feel though that they make a difference. Some don't feel like their talents and skills are utilised. Does anyone feel as if this might be familiar in their own club? Club engagement, invite prospective members, was high. So that means that people weren't inviting prospective members. Invite friends and family to club events was also high. Proud of club, 1.34 was quite low. So that means that people were proud of their club, but they weren't proud enough to invite their friends and family to club events and to invite prospective members to come and join. Club dues too low was 10%, and meals at meetings would cost was too high was 20%. So that brings us to our strategic plan. So all of that informed what we saw as the key areas for the strategic plan. So we came up with this vision. And we supplemented that with our mission statement. So you may see that there's a fairly good alignment with the RI strategic plan. In addition, as part of once we developed this, we actually consulted not only with the club and presented it in a whole club meeting and took questions, but we also took it out to committees. So every committee looked at it and looked at the actions behind this and whether they agreed to it. And we took on board all of that discussion. So we looked at 3 key areas. You know, these are RI's key areas for the strategic plan: member experience and engagement, expanding our reach, and increasing our impact through service. So you may see that this is almost like a task list, but we wanted to be action focused. We didn't want it to be too strategic that our members would feel as if it wasn't something that they were looking at and that it was for someone else to be doing. We wanted this to be something that was relevant. Steph, did you want to do this part?
Sorry, I'm working from quite a small screen.
Oh, okay. So we looked at how we enhance the leadership skills and development of members through ensuring people attend district assembly, providing leadership development and skills training, ensuring all board-elect members have attended RLI training, and as budget permits, encourage other members to do so. And I might come back to that a little bit later because it was something that we've found as a club has had a significant bearing on our retention of members. And we focused on developing a really good Rotary information program, including the compilation of all existing resources into an electronic database. In addition to that, we looked at program because program had been something that had fallen away over time. And so we tried to beef that up and tried to get different speakers that were relevant to our members, but were high profile enough that we could invite a guest along and they'd think, wow, that's someone who I wouldn't normally get to hear from. We focused on developing a mentoring program and training a core group of mentors whose job was to mentor other people. We wanted to look at the skills and experience of members. We wanted to inform our members of opportunities to participate in Rotary activities outside of our club, so at district level, and actively recognise within our club those members who do so. And in fact, out of that one line, our current district governor came. So we're the home of the district governor at the moment. That was because we said, you know what, we need to engage more with district. And we have a couple of people in our club who would be very good district governors potentially. Ascertain the satisfaction of members throughout our club on an annual basis, which is we've done every year. So we can see a trend on things now. And articulate process and considerations in allocating members to committees. In addition to that, developing partnerships in other clubs. So earlier I spoke about how we've sort of seen ourselves as separate. This was around about re-engaging and making sure that those partnerships were positive for everyone. So expanding our reach. So establishing a public image committee. So previously we didn't have public image on the board. It was one person who had other commitments and they would do public image when they had an opportunity. We were taking the position of, and it required a bylaw change, that public image is that important that we wanted it on the board. We wanted to increase the awareness of the club within the community through redeveloping our website. And if you have a look at our website, it is so much better than it was 2 years ago. Enabling the bulletin editor to upload newsletters to the member area of the website, and further developing our Facebook presence and establishing an Instagram presence, which we've done. And so if you have a look at our Facebook page or at our website, that it's all consistent branding. It's using all of the RI materials so that we can get the best bang for buck for our time. It's about planning for public image as well through our projects. And we've been doing that. We're gradually changing attitudes and being able to build that up. Enabling members to purchase Rotary branded long sleeve, short sleeve and polo shirts with our club logo on. And in fact, there's a photo a little bit later on where you'll be able to see a fair chunk of our membership in our new club polos. And this is probably the one that we've struggled with a little bit, which is engaging with local businesses, the local business enterprise centre and Toastmasters clubs with a view of increasing membership or sponsorship for our club or projects. So like I said earlier, we were looking at partnering with other clubs to support larger initiatives, holding brainstorming meetings to engage with members with a view of developing diverse fundraising activities, seeking to involve our Rotarians in overseas projects that we sponsor. We had been caught in, a position where we were funding a lot of things, but we weren't doing a lot of things. Partnering with our local council and looking at how we can develop signature projects. So a quote that I recall I think it was one of the RI board of directors mentioning a couple of years ago was, if your local community knows you best for your fundraising, you're doing community service wrong. And also developing our relationship with governments in relation to grants. So that's all great in theory. We've developed this strategic plan, and as happens with strategic plans, many entities put them in a drawer, never to be seen again, other than when they need to review it in 3 years' time to say, oh yeah, that looks good. We should have done that. That wasn't the approach that we took, and we did that deliberately. So this is just, I guess, a quick list that Steph and I have come up with of things that we've done over the last 3 years directly related to the strategic plan. I won't go through these line by line, but that's a fair list, and that's just in member experience and engagement. One of the things that we've also done is if someone has indicated that they might be looking to leave, we've had a conversation with them, not necessarily to retain them, but rather to see if there's a club that would be better for them. So if there's something that they're looking for in Rotary that our club probably isn't in a position to be able to provide, we've actually actively said to them, there's these other clubs. Do you want us to come with you and we can actually show you them and we can introduce you to people? So I think there's 8 that have left in the last 3 years, 4 of them have been transfers. So here's just some examples of what we've come up with. So in terms of service, like many clubs, there's opportunities that come through COVID. There's some challenges that come through COVID. I guess one of the challenges we've had is ability to engage with our membership. And that's really been a struggle for us. But what we have found is that it's really enabled our youth programs. And so our youth programs budget over the last 10 years has gone from $3,000 to $24,000. And what that has meant is that we've been able to engage with our alumni and we've been able to develop them into our membership. So of those, I think, 10 members that we have under 40, Steph, 7 of them would be Rotary alumni?
Yeah.
So that photo up the top on the right-hand side, that's our new polo tops. So we have a green thing because we did it right when environment became one of the new areas of focus. And as you saw from the photo at the beginning, there's a lot of greenery in Campbelltown. So it's great to be able to reflect that. All right. That brings us to the end. And we're more than happy to take some questions.
Fantastic work there, Damian and Stephany. There's a lot to learn from that, a lot to learn. We do have some questions in the pipeline. I think we'll go over to Barry Stanbury for his question first.
Okay, good evening all, and thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of it. I was just interested to know that, first of all, Stephany, you were president the other day when you opened the, what's the name, at Tanunda. You did a very good job, but a number of years ago, you were obviously segregated as far as allowing you to join the club. Why was that, and what made that change?
Technically speaking, our club was very, very focused on classification, which was, I believe, written into our bylaws at the time. And classification is a profession. So they believed that was a valid reason some of the members believed that was a valid reason to keep me out because I didn't have a classification. Some of the other conversations that I have heard are, what would a 19-year-old female possibly want to do in Rotary? And I guess I can leave that up to your imagination. But I can tell you that in the past 10 years, it has changed. My attitude personally was you have to be in it to change it. I can't change it from the outside. So despite their attitudes, I did stick with it. And I can say a lot of young people have followed me, and our club has changed quite substantially. They now brag about having myself and Damian as members of their club.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you, Barry and Stephany. Mina Howard, good question there about the membership, about the member satisfaction survey. Just to clarify, we'll be sending a PDF of Damian's of the survey from Campbelltown to everyone. Maybe we could hold this question over till you've had a chance to look at it and compare the two. Okay. I'm just thinking, if that would be okay.
Can I just extend on that, Mina? What we actually do, our annual survey doesn't have the qualitative parts at the end. It only has the quantitative part, and then because that way we can do comparative for trend. And we're not really that interested in the qualitative part every year. It's really, and we have a new members survey now that actually captures a lot of that information, so that we don't have to go back to our members every year and ask them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm more than happy to send that through. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Damian, and thanks, Mina. Pushpalium has a question for you, Damian.
Thank you, Carol. Damian, excellent presentation, very impressive that you all have made tremendous progress in recruiting young members. I'm interested to know how you were able to bring in these young members. Were they given any special privileges? And how many of the young members are still in your club? Thank you, Damian.
Not a problem at all. So, in fact, both of us may answer that because we may have different opinions on it. I didn't actually go out to recruit younger members. I went to bring in people who I thought would be good for Rotary, who Rotary would benefit from, and who would benefit from being in Rotary. And so, people like Stephany, who'd attended RILA, had moved to Adelaide, where they already had a relationship, was easy. We have alumni as part of it. So, and we have we're developing. We have, and we're trying to get better in engaging our alumni, but also not seeing age as a barrier. So, in multiple conversations I've had with members, the question comes, why would a young person want to join our club? And my question back is, why wouldn't they want to join our club? Young people want to make a difference. They want to have a positive impact on the world. Why would they not want to join our club, which does exactly that? And if it's the membership, what about the membership is putting them off? And how can we try to resolve that? And so things like not singing the song, it's not going to make someone not join. It's probably not going to be something that makes them feel as if Rotary is relevant to them, though. And so that was something that we took a pathway, and gradually that was not necessarily done anymore. So there were multiple strategies around that. Steph, did you want to contribute?
I can expand on that. You touched on alumni and changing a few things about our meeting. I would personally, I have joined through Rotary Youth programs. I would encourage you to firstly ask young people. So the amount of years I was in Rotary before someone asked me why I joined was a little ridiculous. And the first time someone asked me they didn't actually ask me. I put up my hand and I said, why is you all talking about this? You're all telling the audience that young people don't want to join Rotary because they actually aren't focused on helping the community. They're a selfish generation. And I'm sitting there going, what am I? Why is no one asking me why I joined? Maybe that's relevant. So ask young people what they want. Don't ask the older person what, makes no sense. But anyway, change up your meetings to make them more relevant and interesting. I'm not saying get rid of all of your traditions. I'm not saying change everything, But if you're meeting weekly and fortnightly, you're asking young people to put in a lot of time attending those meetings. So make them worthwhile and invite them to everything. Don't make assumptions on what you believe young people would be interested in. You have all these people going to leadership camps and youth programs. Make sure you encourage them to attend. Subsidize their meal costs. Bring them along as a personal guest if you like. Have them sit next to you. Talk them through the meeting. Make sure they're involved. When I first joined my club, I took a while to work out who I wanted to sit with because they were talking about golf. They were talking about what they were doing in their retirement. These were conversations I couldn't actually contribute to. So it took me a while to find a group of members within our club that actually asked me what I was doing with my life, what I did after uni, what I did on the weekend. And they made an effort to include me in conversation. So it might not actually be something that you think about. So I'm bringing it to your attention now. Make sure you actually make an effort to include them in conversations so they feel like they belong there. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Stephany. In other words, be inclusive.
That would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah. District Governor nominee 9640, Lisa Hunt has a question.
Hi, Stephany, you led into it beautifully because it went around alumni. So in 9640, we actually have an extra youth program. So we have Ripen, but we also have Rights. So the Rotary Youth Transition Seminar that we offer to year 11, 12s. And then we have RILAs. So one of the things, I guess, is that when you've looked at alumni, how do you actually approach maybe the parents and the family as well as the participant? And I can completely empathise with your experience. Our daughter, both my husband and I are Rotarians, our daughter is 21. And at 21, I inducted her, at 20, actually, before she was 21. And when nobody else put her hand up for president, after attending RILA, she did. Now, she copped the year of president that was COVID. And, you know, I got to say, if you ever want to see resilience in our teams and our future, that is where you see it. I'm disappointed in a couple of our members in the club. I think they're still in the dark ages, but we'll try and extract them. But I guess my approach, both you and Damian, is when you're talking about alumni, it actually is the extension of the parents. It's also their siblings who are those future youth program members. So how have you approached that?
Damian, from a family perspective, you often talk about this.
I was going to let you go first, and then because Lisa, I'm actually one of the areas that I cover as an assistant coordinator is alumni and younger membership. So what I might do is I'll ask Steph to talk about at a club base, and then I'll talk about overall strategies that could be utilised more broadly.
I guess we do a lot with schools, and we are trying our hardest to implement more family days and more family inclusive activities. We often, when we do invite alumni to our meetings, we invite the parents along as well. And we actually, it's always difficult asking someone to just join, but we try and include them as much as possible as well, because if the parents feel comfortable, the child will also feel comfortable.
Okay. So I guess there's a couple of areas, Lisa. One of the things that Steph touched on was around the invitation to alumni. And one of the things that we've implemented as a club is when you're an alumni of our club, we will subsidise half your meal cost as long as you come along. And so we see that as part of the project cost. So when we send someone to RILA, it might be $900, but we actually take into account that there's going to be an additional maybe $300 or $400 as part of that project cost. And what that does is if they want to come back in 2-3 years' time, we'll pay half of their meal cost. And so we invite them to changeovers, to our birthday nights. We try, even if they don't come, we keep sending them invitations until they tell us not to. The other ways is there's obviously there's Rotaract as part of this conversation as well, and so not just joining our club, but joining our organisation is important, because sometimes we can be a little bit selfish as a club and say this alumni is ours, and what we should be focused on is what's best for them and where's their fit, because it may be that they eventually come back to our club. I know that there's a level of tension in some districts where every club wants the list of alumni that goes to a program, which basically can mean that an alumni can be invited to 20 different clubs, and it doesn't reflect well as an organisation. So it needs to be somewhat structured and coordinated.
We don't want to spam them.
No, correct. And my husband is, both my husband and I are part of the district team as well. So obviously I've got a future leadership role, but yeah, we do get those requests. And what we say to clubs is your role is to always connect with the youth that you send to the programs and with their parents. That's your accountability to do that. So, because I think there's some beautiful future growth. And I'm literally looking at a photograph of somebody right now who's the current president of the Northern Gold Coast Rotaract, and he's the incoming president of the Rotary Club at Coomera Valley. So just remembering they can actually do both. And Joe is a phenomenal young man. He's also going to be our district Rotaract representative for 22-23. So I think, it's just the leadership development we can give these people so early on in careers. Exactly. Is phenomenal, and we got to do it. Like, I'm having a great time at the moment. Sorry to diverge, but Southport Rotary is 76 years old, and they are looking to still be here in another 76 years by currently doing a satellite club that is focused on youth.
Yeah,
every club can do it somehow. It's phenomenal. I love you guys. You're so good.
So can I just expand on that? So one of the things that when I speak to clubs, I talk about is start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And so that means, for example, collecting the information around alumni, going back as many years as we can, making sure that as a club, we're investing in these people, making sure that flexibility isn't something that's inhibiting their engagement. Exploring what they want, asking them how we can best engage with them and not presuming we know. Always listening to what they want. So it may be that having that informal conversation around what are you doing at the moment, what can we do to help, can actually encourage and inspire them to actually engage further. So my daughter's actually the president of our club's Rotaract Club, and that came out of her attending RILA. Because she was so inspired around that. My son's involved in our Interact Club too, so it's like a family over there. Communicating with them through various mechanisms, so making sure that they are actually finding what they want rather than what we tell them they want. Looking at the spiral of development, so if they go to Ripen, then they might go to RITES, then they go to RILA, and also if they're on that science bent, going through the science experience, the engineering challenge, NYSF, etc., potentially some type of scholarship. These are all avenues to continue that engagement and for them to see Rotary as their area or their organisation of choice. Let them help you. So we've invested in them, and generally my experience from RILA and RIPEN is that they will want to give back, and we don't necessarily give them that opportunity very often. So actually allowing them to give back. Being in a position to provide mentoring. So not only us mentoring them, but them mentoring us. And there's so many areas that they can, because it's both ways. Being courageous and celebrating with them. So if they have an achievement, a career achievement, a personal achievement, actually engaging in their life and celebrating with them. And making sure that they feel a part of the club, that they're part of the family of Rotary, because that's what they are now as alumni. So that's just a few things that you could consider.
Thank you, Damian, and thanks, Steph.
Thanks, Lisa, Damian and Steph. I'm really thrilled that we have 5 of our wonderful colleagues from New Zealand with us tonight. One of them, District Membership Chair Johnny Dryden, and I forget which of those 99-something-0 districts it is, Johnny, so forgive me, mate. Over to you for your question.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Kiro. It's 9930. So we're holding our own on membership, but one of the things I'm hearing back from a lot of our members is that the club isn't engaging them, particularly with COVID, with projects, or they're sitting on big bank balances. And I'm just keen to hear you two young people, because one of the areas that I want to grow in our district 9930 is the gender imbalance. We've got 28% of our membership is female. I want to get that to 35 by the end of the next district governor's year. And I want to also get Rotary going, but in our district, obviously integrating them into clubs. So my key thing was to ask you that, because obviously you would be looking at clubs that are probably looking old, stale, pale and male, and just probably 1 or 2 particular things from your point of view, Steph, as a woman, and Damian, that you overcome certain paradigms to shift their thinking, to make you welcome and to make other people welcome around your age or gender, please.
I think we did a little bit of education around the bullying and harassment policy, and I think it was 2015, 2016, which was very eye-opening for a few of our members. We did touch on how certain behaviours were no longer acceptable, and a lot of the older generation didn't actually think about that. So changing how they acted at club meetings and Rotary events certainly helped women feel more comfortable at our meetings. Damian, do you have anything to add?
I wouldn't presume to say what a woman would want, so I'm going to be quiet for that and allow you to talk. I can talk about the youth part. I think as we spoke about before, I think alumni is, that's a warm lead for us. Why would we not be utilising that as much as we can? We're investing in these young people already. They've already engaged with us. It just seems like, and I've written about this, we have 5,000 alumni each year in our zone, and probably only about 2% end up in Rotary, if that. And it just feels like a huge loss. If we had that's like 2-3 districts worth of members that we lose every year by not engaging with them effectively. So that's just an area that I think is right for the picking. But in terms of younger membership, one of the things that I think we've done successfully is we've actually, not that we've formed a clique, but we've made Rotary easy for our younger members. So we have a group chat that that all of us are part of, and if someone's running late, someone else will grab them a drink, save them a chair. If we're wanting someone if we need people for projects, we just put it up there, and we've at least got a core that can help us out. We try, if someone's not going to make it, we put it in there. Like, it's just a really nice communication mechanism that everyone feels part of, which is great. And numbers beget numbers. So if we started with 1, we grew to 2, we grew to 4, we grew to 8. I think we're just over 10 now. It's once you have people, it's easier to get people, and that's the difficulty, I guess, for smaller clubs, is there's not as much of a number of members there to be able to do that. In a larger club, there's a level of anonymity that can come in with that, and so people don't do as much at times, and there's structures that can be put in place to be able to do that. But it's somewhat easier to bring people in because you have more people to call upon. Did that help, Johnny?
Yes, it did. Thank you. And Stephany, thanks for talking about that. I've got to do a membership chat breakout session next Saturday week, and a big part of it's going to be on women in Rotary, and I'm going to include that bullying and harassment, because that module on my Rotary Learning Centres, it's invaluable learning whether you're a Rotarian or a non-Rotarian. But yeah, thanks both for your input tonight.
Thanks, Johnny, Damian and Stephany. Now, Damian and Stephany, before we start, or as we were doing our pre-discussions tonight, I did touch on a question that I was going to ask you. And as we get close to the hour ticking over, this is where I'm really curious. And perhaps you could go first, please, Stephany. Stephany Martin, President Stephany Martin, why are you a Rotarian?
I think I actually touched on this when I was first introducing myself, but I joined because of our youth programs. Coming from very rural New South Wales, travelling to Raipen and then to Ryla, it not only changed my life, and I know that sounds very dramatic, but it did. It broadened my horizons, made me realise I can be more than a farmer. And I had such an amazing positive experience that I wanted to be part of the organisation that allowed young people to have the same experience I did. So I actually went on, and you'll see in my bio that I was the chair of Raipen and Ryla for 4 years. And during that time, I actually started a program in the country. So instead of dragging people out of the country and out of their comfort zone, I took Raipen to them because I think that it's a fantastic experience, and it really teaches them a lot and broadens their horizons. So that's why I'm a Rotarian.
Fantastic. Thanks, Stephany. Damian.
When my daughter was much younger, I used to get her to ask herself the question about a situation, which was, what can I do to help? And I found Rotary to be my answer to that.
Fantastic. In a nutshell. Thank you, Damian, and thank you, Stephany. So let's give them a big round of applause. Well done, Stephany and Damian. That's been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Kieran.
And thank you to our audience for being here, and good night.